And that's why now we're going to dive into a panel where we're going to talk about how AI is really impacting everything within longevity. And I have three really knowledgeable experts and longevity innovators who are going to join me in the panel. We can see them here. I'd like to welcome them one by one. I'll start with women first. Professor Evelyne Bischof, who is Chief Physician Associate of Internal Medicine at the University of Hospital Renji of Jiantong University in Singapore, and also a concierge longevity physician with executive longevity patients, and also hosts her own longevity conference. So please give it up for Evelyne. And then we also have Alex Zhavoronkov, who is founder and CEO at Insilico Medicine, and that's a global clinical stage, a generative AI-powered drug discovery and development company founded in 2014. So please give it up for Alex. And last but definitely not least, we have Dr. Hans Keirstead, who is an internationally renowned stem cell expert. He's also chairman and CEO at Avita Biomedical. He's also CEO of Human Immuno Project, which is a really interesting project, and chairman at Immunis. For those who don't know Immunis, it's a private technology company focused on the development of treatments for age-related and disease-related immune deficiencies. So give it up for Hans. So a really distinguished panel, and of course also a broad topic, because we're going to talk about AI and all its implications. But I thought we'd sort of maybe start with an open question and get your own thoughts on, why should we be interested in aging and longevity research, and specifically why now? So maybe ladies first, I'll start with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, first of all, for this great event and for having me here. It's a great honor and pleasure. And I think there are so many reasons why now and why healthy longevity and why health in general. I think it's the number one human right and human wish to be healthy, and it's the base for everything else. And why right now? Because right now, finally, we have the tools, mostly based on AI, and also we have the right people leading the field, I think, and more joining, which is great, in order to really move the needle from sick care to healthcare, from longevity, as we knew it before, to healthy longevity, and really tackling health span with very precise, personalized, data-driven care.
Alex?
Well, who here would like to age and die? Anyone? And right now, by just being here, I think that you are really privileged to have access to the front row seat of what's happening in longevity. Thanks for being part of the maximum community. I think that I just want to resonate with Dr. Evelyne, that now, over the past 10 years, we've seen more happen in longevity than over the past history of humanity. Aging clocks, hallmarks of aging, the first longevity drugs reaching human clinical trials. We see massive communities in the East and West forming to go after aging in a more constructive way. We see more rich people focusing on that, and actually it has to start from the rich people, just like with an iPhone, before we got to the point where it's so democratized that everybody has one, or something similar. It was originally developed for the rich people. And people realize that now is the time to act. If you come in later, you will be too late. If you were to come in maybe a couple decades ago, it's too early. And this industry is, of course, the market of skeletons. So far, no longevity company has succeeded and made it big. So that's one thing to note. But I think that the time is now, and you're in the best place to learn about it.
I guess I'll just add that the time is now. Certainly, I'll echo that. But I have been very attracted to this notion of longevity escape velocity, and evidencing the fact that the time is now. There are several technologies that have just recently become available over the last few years that are basically extending life for about a third of a year for every year. And that's where we are now. our lifespans are being extended, our health spans and lifespans by about 1/3 of a year for every year. So, and it's anticipated by several leaders in the field, and I feel the same way, that in 10 years we will hit that escape velocity where we're extending life for a year for every year that's gone by. And that's when things really start to get interesting. So the reason for that is just simply that there are more tools and there are more resources in the field. We're fastly approaching the largest sector. You know, and just by 2030, 1 in 6 people are going to be over 60. That's phenomenal. So the deployment of resources and the development of new tools, AI being one of them, is what's setting that stage.
And I think sort of tapping into that, looking, we are going into an aging population, at least in Europe and the US, and sort of Africa is the young demographic. What do you see sort of giving that potentials to people, investors here, when it comes to AI, how AI really can accelerate everything from, personalized medicine, which is one way forward, but also targeting, healthcare for an aging population. I don't even like that wording, but for a population that is becoming more and more mature, that has potential, but how can we increase their health span? Do you have any sort of concrete examples of how AI really is facilitating this?
Sure, I'm going to skip, I think, the most important part in my perspective, which is AI targeted drug discovery and synthesis. Alex will cover that for sure. First of all, I think it's important to know that not all doctors are afraid of AI or against it. And also that longevity is not only for people who are already in the phase where they would be called aged and elderly. It's really, the focus is, and for all the investors, it's important to know the target is right now the workforce and very soon probably even the young population. So in Sheba, we will soon be looking at the neonates, because this is where aging is starting. But for this, we need to have a good base on knowing what are the data that we have to work with. So we need the data also from aged populations, from elderly people, and that's something that is very tangible right now. There are solutions in many countries called Healthy Cities, or projects that are really doing the genomic screening in these populations. They are implementing infrastructure facilities, and all that is pretty much based on AI. Not only for collection of the data, but also then, of course, on translating those data into, we call it objective function, meaning you can ask a question and the AI will help you, not decide for you, but help you to make the right decision of how much exercise somebody needs, which drug would be the best in that specific situation, what are the helps in care that are needed for people of different aging stages. And last but not least, I think also what is important for investors to know is longevity is not only for healthy people. Longevity is very quickly not transferring, but entering the sick care. People who have chronic diseases, people who have cancer, I work with cancer patients day in, day out, they also want to benefit from longevity diagnostics, and there will be more and more biological aging clocks specifically for those patients. So there's a huge potential coming in, but it has to start with a specific population now, and hopefully in the future it will just grow and be very sustainable.
So we start with a specific population, and then we can actually scale that into a more sort of generic population.
So just to add to that, you were asking about tangible achievements where AI is helping. So AI is disrupting 4 areas. One is care. So now with AI, you can care for the elderly at a completely new level, so that the care is also enjoyable. And now with ChatGPT, Alzheimer's patients actually can chat to ChatGPT for as long as they like. And it will answer their questions, it will recognize the relatives, it will help them improve the quality of life. And the quality of life for everybody in this room is going to improve regardless how old you are, because humanoids are coming, right? And if you are not in the field, if you haven't experienced some of those humanoids, next 2-3 years, you don't need to have children anymore. You will have unconditional love from humanoid robots that really like you and will give you massages and ensure that your diet, exercise, sleep, and your lifestyle improves. Then here delivering. So insurance providers now can track you, can deliver care for you, especially at the higher end level, and ensure that you benefit from the best treatments. Drug development, so clinical trials is disrupted by AI right now. So here at Davos at World Economic Forum, you would see 6-7 unicorns who are focusing on clinical trials analysis, and they have a lot of tangible results to demonstrate. And drug discovery, so that's where we're a pretty big player. I can give you many examples. So where AI can identify actionable targets for a variety of diseases, mostly cancer and fibrosis and metabolic diseases, and then very rapidly generate chemistry with the desired properties. So generative started delivering, and the quality of those molecules is very high. Sold my last one, it just entered phase 1 for $80 million upfront, a very big deal. During JP Morgan, when I was $500 million deal, also for an AI-generated molecule. So that took about 3 years to develop. So it shows you that we have massive acceleration. However, it will take time for those advancements to propagate, especially on the drug discovery side, because you should expect a lot of failures. And currently, it's not possible and not economically feasible to develop a drug against aging. You have to develop a drug against the disease and then try to repurpose it towards aging, because otherwise you won't be able to fundraise $1.4 billion with 10% probability of success in order to develop a longevity therapeutic. Might be easier, might be not, but currently it's not possible. You have to identify dual-purpose therapeutics. Another thing that actually we need to talk about, and what was not mentioned by Mark and Tobias, who are all the brilliant superstars in the field here, thank you for organizing this, XPRIZE. So now have AI biomarkers that are going to be delivered and tried by XPRIZE participants. And we might be able to actually see some longevity therapies develop faster. So huge reason to be optimistic.
It is a $101 million prize for the XPRIZE initiated by Davos.
Thank you, MBS. Thank you, Saudi.
Yeah, exactly.
Lovely.
Announced at the Evolution in Saudi just a month ago. And 101 because Elon had gone for 100 million, so it's 101. And that's sort of a good transition to you, Hans. What would you find, or any concrete examples where AI is really sort of catalyzing?
Well, as we have a largely investor audience here, I'd warning to the investors and a bit of advice is I would follow the mission that's being aided by AI rather than AI. When I started as a graduate student, you are either a molecular biologist or you weren't. Now it's a tool in a toolbox. Most scientists use molecular biology and many other tools. AI is getting to be that way. So the most concrete example that I see, and the most transformative, as biased as I am, but this is why I did become the Chief Executive Officer of the Human Immunome Project. The Human Immunome Project is like the Human Genome Project in that it's global, it's huge, and what we're doing is coding the immune system in every single human population. Every manifestation of aging is immune mediated. That's very underappreciated. Every manifestation of aging is immune mediated. And your muscle degeneration, your metabolism, everything. And the goal of the Human Immunome Project is to take 1,000 of you. So every gender, every ethnicity, every socioeconomic class, because if you're wealthy, you have less toxins in your food and environment than you do in your poor. All of the 5 baseline levels of human existence, and at every age, every 5 years throughout your entire life. That's about 1.9 trillion data points from hundreds of centers around the world that we're gathering, and that takes AI, because AI can grapple with it. But the story, coming back to what I said, it's not about the AI, it's about the longevity goal that you're doing, and we're using AI like a tool. And I would just, my point here is, as brilliant as the Human Immunome Project is in gathering and being able to grapple, you will see from that things like new drug development, predictive physiological manifestations of the drugs that you're going to take. Your 55-year-old white male self that grew up in a high environment or low environment, people just like you, a Gaussian norm. The AI is going to be able to predict how you're going to do to that drug. Oh, let's not use that drug, let's use that one because, black men in their 50s have the highest autoimmunity in the world. So we need specific drugs for them in that population. So modeling of diseases, modeling how it goes, all of these questions, keep your eye on those questions. AI is going to help along the way, but it's a tool in a toolbox. One hell of an amazing tool. But I would keep your focus on the major questions.
And sort of tying into that, because there's also, AI has been criticized, trying to, both criticize and applaud for trying to, our unconscious bias, for example, when it comes to a lot of research is done maybe more towards the male gender, not towards the female, and so forth. And there's a lot of unconscious bias in humanity in general, and AI, whether we're feeding AI with all of the data. So looking at sort of the ethical part of this, of AI becoming, a powerhouse when it comes to longevity research, and also the accumulation of all this data that of course is there to really enhance research and drug development, but also, where is the ethical, tandem here? Or is there no ethical? It's more, the more we can accumulate data, the better for humanity. What's your take on this?
I can go. I gave a keynote at the United Nations General Assembly a little while ago, being a non-AI person about healthcare and AI, and they wanted somebody who was not AI. And I know a fair bit about AI, but I'm a broad healthcare expert. And it was very, very apparent that regulation on AI, especially as it pertains to healthcare, think about HIPAA regulations, etc., is crucially important. Now, so that's for regulation, okay? Meaning, if you take 6 of my ohms and in 3 different bits of my tissue and you handed it to an insurance company, you could pretty well determine whether I was going to be insured or not and what I'd be paying. Very, very well. So we don't want that to happen, right? So we have to decode de-identify all of my data. So like in the Human Immune Project, where we're doing this on millions of people and trillions of bits of data, we do not want someone to be able to compile Hans Keirstead's data set, because they can manipulate me. So de-identification of data is one of the greatest ethical challenges, because AI is very, very good at re-identifying. It's extremely good. So what we're getting at here, the answer is data management. So data management and siloing the data is one of the core concepts behind the ethical protection. And I think that that's probably the number one concern that healthcare has, is the de-identification of patients for their own lifestyles and predictability, who you're going to marry, who you're going to have children with, who you're going to have as your insurance provider, how long can you get your insurance, is it you're going to live to 150 or you're going to live to 30, you're going to behave very, very differently. And as we are becoming excellent at predicting that, ethically, we have to be very, very careful. Now, I want to just balance that with one more thing. Jane Metcalf, she founded Wired magazine, okay? And, the most well-read magazine in science worldwide ever, okay? That was great at that time when the internet boom was happening. And there was an incredible argument going on then about the regulation of the internet and advertising and publicity. And what they thought then was, don't regulate this. We need to see what comes from it. And I have to say, on that deregulating side, I'm also a tremendous proponent. If we regulate AI too much in the beginning, we're going to squash its potential and not be able to realize it. I'm not saying we shouldn't regulate it, but we shouldn't regulate it in ignorance, because what would happen if the internet was over-regulated in ignorance? It wouldn't exist.
So I'll be a devil's advocate, and I'll be very quick because I want to give some airtime to Eva. Don't quote me broadly, okay? Because what I'm going to say is going to be a little bit controversial. First of all, I think that regulation should be done by experts. And if you are not an AI, you should not have a word at the table for many reasons. Because very often you don't understand the true biases and the true fixes. As a matter of fact, even for gender balance and data nowadays. You can actually now instruct this AI to be fair, and it will actually recalibrate in many ways and rebalance and identify and self-examine itself now, and identify the gaps that you need to fill in order for the data set to be balanced. I think that I'm not sure how old you guys are around here, but many of you probably have lived through the stem cell revolution and embryonic stem cell regulation, right? Remember the early 2000s where everybody was trying to regulate stem cells, embryonic stem cells. Religious groups got involved, and a lot of research was stalled. As a matter of fact, it's still stalled. Guess what? Where do we get with the stem cells? Yeah, just don't have the therapies for extinction of T and a few other cancer treatments that work very, very well. But ethical hype was overhyped. Turns out we didn't need to regulate as much. Same with data. I actually think that it's great to be depersonalized. I give all my data out in the public because if you're a healthy individual and all your data is out there, if you get sick, the probability of people will find an effective cure for your sickness is higher. So it's a way to insure yourself against the future downside. Just like many of you probably are doing extensive checkups from time to time, right? And imagine if those samples that you are giving away were available to scientists worldwide to play with in a lab to turn your cells into diseases and then try to cure those diseases. So if you get one for real, you actually might get an effective cure right there, right now for you. And most people don't realize how risk-free the data is. Because, 23andMe, millions of records were stolen, including mine. Well, you're gonna, what kind of downside is there? You find that your papa is not your papa, that's it. Well, yeah, that's your risk. Regulate the insurance providers. If they use this data for malicious purposes, they lose everything they have. So they will just not use it. That's the only thing that needs to be done. And we need to motivate people and explain to them that the value of the data out there is actually very, very valuable for them. And they are losing more by siloing the data and being scared of their data being accessed. In the future, AI is likely to access your brain, and it will access your thoughts and memories. So don't commit any crime, because it will be very well known, most likely. Be good people and work towards happy AI. That way it will know that you are a friend, right? Sorry it took so much time, but I think that AI is going to make your life better, and right now we just need to ensure that it doesn't get over-regulated. And especially people shouldn't get scared into believing that something bad is going to happen to them, because I don't see any evidence of anything like that happening.
And I guess regulation is like a whole new panel. And I also think because this discussion steps into nearly any sector, that we really need to bring all the stakeholders to the table, whether it's stakeholders from regulation, legislation, in this case scientific input, so that there's a consortium who are developing this.
I'd like to promote a book. It's called The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman, the co-founder of DeepMind. So if you want to read the book on basically policy, without not so many concrete kind of ideas, but a lot of ethical considerations, that's the book to read.
Evelyne, please step in, and then we can just almost switch into Russia.
Yes, with pleasure. So I might also speak not exactly as a physician here per se, because I very much resonate with what has been said. I think there is, and we see it as physicians and as scientists too much in clinical trials. There are many burdens because of over-regulation. Not to say that ethics is not important. The opposite, it's very important to be wisely regulated and also to ask for specific advice. But I agree that a lot of ethical committees have to first be educated on AI and very rapidly, because AI is progressing so fast. So we as physicians can turn to them, because ultimately we are the ones talking with patients. Now, in terms of data, even if you look 10 years back, the biobanks that we have, that we learn from now, are just they are so small in comparison to what they could be in terms of samples and in terms of data and longitudinal follow-up. Why? Because there is sometimes too much regulation. And again, I wouldn't be too worried also, even with the health insurances or life insurances, they anyway have the access to the data, they will find a way. They will possibly even implement obligatory tools to pass people through. So why don't we collect the data first, teach the tools better, and have better algorithms? And by the way, data from hospitals are stolen all the time, and still nothing happens. So I think data can help us to progress very, very much.
I guess everything is about creating a narrative today, both towards consumers and towards the industry. So just to sort of round it off, because we've run out of time, and just to make it relevant for everyone in the room, as most people are coming from the investment and potential perspective, just very briefly, what would you like to say or incentivize to people in the room who are investors who might want, if it's clinical trials, if it's, AI-driven startups, whatever it might be, where do you see the potential? What advice would you like to give to them?
Okay. My advice is that everything is about the immune system. Every manifestation of aging and disease is the immune system. And of course, the Human Immune Project is looking at that and defining it and help us predict. A company I run called Immunis has an immune modulator, and it's a new drug category called a secretome, which is the sum set of secretions from what? That's what makes the difference. A stem cell makes a secretion set that's great for stem cells, doesn't have anything to do with your immune system. So for the first time in the world, we made human immune system precursors, and we can farm them by the billions, collect their secretome. A secretome is a brand new drug category. So this is, again, worth your time to look at. Just secretomes as a sector, because every drug you've ever taken is a single active ingredient. This is 440, and it's regulated as a drug by every regulatory agency only a few years ago. So Immunis is one of 3 companies in the world that is now in human clinical testing in the United States FDA, looking at the effect of a 440 component secretome from human immune system precursors that modulates your immune system. Your immune system declines with age. This keeps it up, like you were at your healthiest at 27 when you were at your immune peak. And we've shown in rodents that it abates or halts every manifestation of aging, and we're just starting on humans. I literally landed last night into Zurich, and my emails popped up, and we just had the first 3 human data showing that we were looking at muscle atrophy in the age, and we're expanding muscle in humans now, and we're just about to start testing metabolism. So we've got open clinical trials running in phase 1 and phase 2. Anyone's interested, please let me know.
Thank you so much. That's an opportunity during the network to go to Hans and learn more, because he has an investment potential and if not knowledge.
I will be brief because I think what we can really invest in and could accelerate everything else that will be done, therapeutics and further learning from data, is platforms that would combine those data together, so we can learn how from an individual all those systems, from immune to genetics to proteomics, combine, and how we can optimize those things in order to really create a longevity protocol, and also then to have this base in order to trial senolytics, germ protectors, things that can really move the needle away from only lifestyle to actual therapeutics and AI, therapeutic drug discovery.
Yeah. So from silos to a mutual platform.
Yeah, actually, just want to make a correction. Well, first of all, Immunis, great company, so great track record, so probably going to be successful, but not everything in aging relates to the immune system, because there are some places in your body that don't have an immune system, like your eye, for example, and still ages.
You have to be brief, sorry,
Yeah, so
Alex,
there are
I'm
many,
getting
many,
right.
many ways to address aging. 2 recommendations for the investment community. A, well, you're already in the right place. You deal with Maximum and come to those lunches more often. Make sure you get a lot of friends, and go to ARED conference in Copenhagen, 5-day event. You're going to network with scientists and pharma. But most important, they take our Investing in Longevity course online, free, which actually tells you the horror story of investing in longevity over the past 30 years, where everything failed. So we need to look for new things. And make sure that you become a venture capitalist of your own longevity, because diet, exercise, sleep is not going to get you far. Buddhist monks live 3 years longer than people if they have good access to healthcare. So we need to start experimenting.
I think that was a perfect ending. Be a venture capitalist in your own health, but also let's scale it so we can also democratize it to humanity. Thank you so much to the panel, and you're available during the